welcome to At Home today, and I hope you're having a great day. We're going to be celebrating our presidents today because all of the things that we'll be preparing will have cherries in them. You know, this little jar of cherries, I mean, besides tasting good, and on a Sunday, you can't beat a maraschino cherry on top of a sundae. I mean, you just can't beat that. But besides tasting good and eating them for enjoyment, do you know that there is great medicinal value in a cherry? Did you know that? Sometimes when you're on a low-fat or a high-fat diet, you'll get a condition kind of like a gout condition in your joints, either in your toes or in your fingers. And I experienced this last summer when I was real strict on my low-fat diet and almost no fat sometimes. And I was reading in a book where it said if you eat 8 to 10 maraschino, those big Queen Anne, the sweet, the sour, cherry juice, any form of cherries, if you take some portion every day, that in 10 days you'll see a difference, mostly in 10 days. Sometimes it takes a little longer. And you know, I did that, and do you know that that is absolutely correct? It worked for me. So the cherry is not just good tasting, but there's good value for a medicinal purpose. Besides, this medicine tastes better than most medicines that we take. I want to talk to you today about the presidents that we're going to be celebrating. We always celebrate their birthdays in February. George Washington, who was the father of our country, and Abraham Lincoln. Two men who were great role models. Now, I know that, you know, it's like almost everything else that you have confidence in. Somebody's always looking for dirt in their lives to dig up about them. Oh, they weren't as wholesome and wonderful. Well, you know, none of us are perfect. And they weren't perfect men, but they stood for what they believed. They did have integrity. They were men, I believe, who had hearts after God, and they wanted a place where they could come and worship God. Do you know that that's why school was developed? So that our children could learn to read the Bible? Do you know that that's why they sent them to school? For that very purpose? So they could learn to read the Bible. What kind of role models do our children have now? I'm wondering, in the home, what kind of role models do the kids have? Are there any role models in politics, even in your personal family, that we could say to our children, look, here's a guy who's wholesome, or here's a person that you'd want to pattern your life after? There's disappointments and there are problems in everybody's lives, but it's what we do about those problems. How do we react? What's our response? What do we do to rectify or to make right things that maybe we've done wrong? And I'm asking you, you parents that have children, please, in your home, be role models, be good role models. You already are a role model. It just depends on whether you work at being a good role model. Don't have a double standard, a standard for the workplace and a standard for home. That's one of the things I love most about my parents, besides the fact that they loved me dearly. My dad was a pastor. He was the same in the pulpit and with church people. He was that same man at home. The same standards, the same rules applied, the same love was there. My mother, absolutely the same. Loving and caring with people in our church, loving and caring at home. Not, well, when you're around church people, you act one way, and when you're around other people, you act. When you're with people who have no standards, no morals, you kind of slip into what they are. They were the same always, and that's what I would ask you. Try to be that role model. Try to live lives that have integrity, have high standards, have high morals. And you say, yeah, but it's hard with so much. So don't let the kids get in front of that television set where all that violence is going on. All the things that you don't want them to be, it's dished up every day through television. So don't let them sit in front of it. Be selective about what they watch. And I hope that At Home is a program that your children can sit in front of the set and watch, and that we can be a role model. Not because of me, but because hopefully I'm telling you that the standards that we're trying to set forth in being of homemakers and creating an atmosphere for family, let's try to do that. Let's strive to do that, because you know what? It pays off in the end. Your kids will grow up and be adults that you can be proud of. So today, we're going to celebrate our presidents. And we're going to get started because cherries are on the main meal, the main dish, and mainly cherries today in celebration of Mr. Washington and Mr. Lincoln. And we'll get started in just a minute. We'll be right back. Here's today's at-home hint. today's at-home hint. Fill drained canned pear halves with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Drizzle chocolate syrup over ice cream and top with pecan halves and cherries.
If you have an at-home hint, a favorite recipe, or just a friendly greeting you'd like to share, we'd like to hear from you. Post it in the comments of this video or visit our Facebook page.
Well, I've already got the mixer going, and in the bowl, we've got 4 egg whites. This first dish is called Cherry Delight. It's kind of like a meringue. It's got walnuts in it. It's got soda crackers, of all things. But I have 4 egg whites in my bowl. Now, the thing you have to remember when you do egg whites, you cannot have any butter, grease, oil, anything on your beaters or on the bowl, or the egg whites will not whip up. They won't get stiff. When they get frothy like this, we're going to add some cream of tartar. There we go. And we're going to keep beating this until it gets stiff. We're going to add some sugar to it because the sugar is going to flavor it. It's really a meringue. It's a delicious, something different. It's kind of a light dessert. If you don't want a heavy, cake or pie or whatever, this would be an alternative because it is a meringue. But we're going to bake it, and we're going to put some cherries on top. The cherries don't bake, and it's something you put on top after it has been baked. But when it gets like this, we're going to start to add our sugar. This is about 1 1/3 cups of sugar. You don't add it all at once. You add it a little at a time, and you let it beat. I'm going to turn it up so we can get this really going, because this has to beat till they're stiff. And you'll know when that is because all of a sudden it gets real shiny, real glossy. And when you pull the beaters out, they'll stay up in peaks, and you know that it's stiff. See, right now you can see this is, look, it's very thin. Well, this is not stiffly beaten. They have to be stiff. And we're going to continue to add the sugar. You say, well, why don't you add the sugar all at once? Because if you do that, it does not incorporate. What makes meringue puff up is you're beating air into the egg whites, and then you add the sugar a little at a time. It beats it and it dissolves. If you add it all at once, what happens is it'll be real grainy. And when you would put your finger in the egg white and you'd rub your fingers together, you could feel the grains of sugar. It had not dissolved. So you want to be sure that you dissolve it. So you add a little bit at a time. And you can see it's getting shinier even as we're talking. It's getting shiny. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. And what we're going to do then, when we add our last bit of sugar to it, we're going to add some vanilla. This is the white vanilla. You can use regular vanilla. That'll be fine. That just helps with the flavor. Before you've even started this, you want to get a 2-quart glass baking dish like this one. What you want to do is generously butter it, because you're going to put this in and this is going to go into the oven. So we have this. It's almost there. You can see it's changing texture, changing consistency. Still not quite there though. Got to keep at it. And you want to make sure that your beaters go all over the bowl so that you get what's in the center has to be beaten too. So you continue to go on. What you have ready also is about 3/4 cup of walnuts. That's what I have here. You also need a can of cherry pie filling. Okay. Now here's your test. See, it still needs to be a little bit more. It has to stand up in stiff peaks, because if it doesn't, it'll go flat and then it won't work when you put it in the oven. And you're going to take some soda crackers, and the soda crackers, don't mash them like crumbs. They need to be broken apart. It's a little bit better than 1/2 of one of these sleeves, I call them, or packages of plain old regular saltine crackers. And you're going to want to be sure to break them, because we're going to fold them into the egg whites. You say, where's the flour? There's no flour. There's no butter. And I'll tell you the truth, except for the walnuts, this could be a no-fat, almost no-fat dessert. I think you'd have to double up on the crackers if you didn't put the walnuts in there. Okay, let's see. I think we're almost there. Aha. See how this is now? Probably could go a little bit more, because the stiffer the better. We're just going to... What takes time to do, but you don't want to rush it, because if you do, you'll have a product that is not up to standards, and then you'll say, well, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you were rushing it. I know we get into, these hurry, 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 but sometimes you just can't rush it. It's like when you're trying to raise bread dough and it just doesn't work because you're rushing. It's not gonna work, trust me, it will not work. Okay, now we're gonna take these walnuts, we're gonna add that to it. And I told you we're gonna break up some crackers, about a half a sleeve, and really just do them a little bit at a time. Just break them. You don't want them to be crumbs now, remember that. You want them in chunks. You say, I never had crackers like this. That's a little unusual. Yeah, it is, but I'll tell you, the finished product is something you're gonna enjoy. And as I was telling you in the beginning of the program, the role models that we have in our presidents, I can remember going to school thinking those guys had to have been the most wonderful men in the world, thinking, boy, Abraham Lincoln, what he did for our country, what a wonderful president he was. He gave his life for the country. I mean, and these were men that I really looked up to. And it's hard to find personalities that you really want to say to your children, boy, you need to grow up and be like so-and-so. Because nowadays, there's just not that many around, unfortunately. Hopefully, our pastors are men that our children can look up to and say, here's a man who, is fair with everyone and has great integrity and loves people and loves God mostly. To me, that would be the first thing that's most important, that they would love God. And role models, what you see on television or what you see like on some of the stations, when I flip by, I think, oh my goodness, this is what our kids are seeing. This is not good, because they are not good role models. But I know that, of course, we have an example of a good role model in the Bible. You're not going to find one better than that. But I know that our children need to pattern their lives, and they will. And parents are role models for them, whether you want to be or not, because you're there every day. You're watching them. You're with them. You're feeding them. And your response to the things that they do, or they're watching your response to the neighbor that comes over and chews you out because maybe you put your snow over on their property and that you didn't mean to do it, but you didn't know where to put or whatever. That's the kind of stuff that shapes our children when they see how people respond, how you respond. Okay, we're going to put this in a preheated oven, 350 degrees. It's going to bake for about 25 minutes. Okay? Now, when you take it out, it has to completely cool. And here's what you're going to have when it's completely cool. It's a meringue, okay? It's a basic meringue. And when it's cool like that, then you're going to put some Cool Whip over the top, just like this, over the top of the meringue. You'll keep this refrigerated until you're ready to serve it, because anything that has Cool Whip on, you need to do that. Just cover it completely. Okay, and when it's done, then is when we're going to spoon the cherries over top of the Cool Whip. Nice? Don't try to do that unless it's cool, though, because if you do, your Cool Whip is going to melt and you'll have a mess. Just spoon the cherries all over the top. Look at that. Wonderful, huh? We're just doing this in celebration of our presidents, because they were men that really gave a lot for our country. They really helped to form those early days of our country. They did a lot. Okay, there's our Cherry Delight, it's called. That's the first one. And like I said, you want to keep that in the refrigerator. Now what we're going to do is our cherry cookies. And this is a very easy dough. And I'm going to get it started while you take a break. We'll be right back in just a minute.
Do you love watching At Home with Arlene Williams? Then be sure to check out our new YouTube channel. It's filled with classic episodes from over 20 years of At Home, and more videos are added each day. And don't forget to click the subscribe button so you'll never miss another episode of At Home.
All right, for our cherry cookies, we've put cup of butter, room temperature, half a cup of sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla, pinch of salt, and 2 1/4 cups of flour. And we're going to make a dough with this. And I'm going to let that dough, it has to beat a little while. While that's going, I'm going to show you a really quick and easy cherry. It's called Crazy Crust Cherry Pie. Honest, I'm almost embarrassed. It's so easy. But you have a deep dish, a 9 or 10-inch pie plate, and you want to grease it real good. In here, I'm going to put a cup of flour, and really just put everything in. Here's 2 tablespoons of sugar, a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 egg, okay, 2/3 cup of vegetable oil, and 3/4 of a cup of water. And we're going to beat that, and this will make a batter. Now all you do with this batter is place it into your pie plate. And if you say, I like pies, but man, I'm not a good pie baker, I can't make them. I'm going to tell you something. This pie is incredible because it doesn't have to be cherry. You could use, if you don't want to use the cherry pie filling, you can use apple, blueberry, peach, any of those flavors. And you just mix it up real well, just like this. Okay? And you let it beat for about 2 minutes because that's going to incorporate all of the ingredients really, really well. For time purposes, I'd probably let this go for about another minute, but because we're running short on time, I'm going to go ahead and place this into the greased, well-greased pie plate. You can see how nice this batter is. Very nice and creamy, I guess it would be the best word I could describe to you. And now you're going to put your cherries right in the middle, and you try not to put them all around the edge because you want to spoon them right in the very middle of the pie, because when this bakes then, what comes up is your crust comes up around the cherries. I mean, look how easy this is. This is like hardly any time at all. This is going to bake in the preheated oven for 35 to 40 minutes. Now this is a hotter oven. This one has to go to 425. So I'm not going to bake it for you, but at the end of the program, I'm going to show you what this pie looks like. Tell you what, that can't be any easier than just putting those few ingredients together and baking it, served with some Cool Whip or a scoop of ice cream. That's a Crazy Crust cherry pie right there. Let's go back over here now and see what's happening. Well, our dough is perfect. And you can do this by hand. If you don't have a mixer, a bigger, heavy-duty mixer, you can do it by hand. Just take some perseverance because you're going to have to work with your hands to get the dough to the right consistency. But what we do here, after you have your dough together, and you can see this, it's going to be crumbly. It's not going to be real smooth like a big batter or anything. It's crumbly. And you're going to be able to work it. See how even the warmth of your hands is going to help you shape the little cherry cookies. You're going to take a piece of dough about that big, and you have a jar of maraschino cherries. You've drained it well. You've cut each cherry in half, and you're basically going to put a piece of cherry just like that, and you're going to form the dough up around the piece of cherry, because this dough is very pliable in your hands. You can work it back and forth, and then you're going to roll it, and you're going to end up with, that's the perfect size. This makes about 4 dozen of these cherry cookies. Let me do another one for you. Okay? This is kind of like a shortbread dough. That's really what the dough on this cookie is. You put a piece of cherry in there. If you think you don't have enough dough because that's a big piece of cherry, add a little piece to it, and then just form the dough up around the cookie. Roll it around, making sure that it's all covered. You place them on a greased baking sheet, and you're going to bake them in a 375-degree oven for 15 minutes. They're not going to get brown, so don't wait for them to get brown. They're going to puff up, and they're going to look almost the same color that they are there. When they come out and they're still a little bit warm, you're going to put them on a cooling rack. You're going to mix up your powdered sugar, your softened butter, some milk, and a little bit of vanilla, and you're going to make an icing. While these are still warm, you want to icing them then, because you want the icing to kind of mold around the cookie. Then you'll take, with the leftover cherries, cut them in a fourth, and you'll place a cherry on top of the icing, and that's your cherry cookies. This, like I said, makes about 4 dozen. Sometimes you get carried away and you think, oh man, I just want to get done with this. They get bigger and bigger. Well, you're not going to have no 4 dozen. But if you really are careful and you mold them in the right size, just about an inch, kind of like what we have there, then you'll be sure to get about 4 dozen. These are great. This is a great wedding. If you're having a wedding reception and you need some kind of a cookie, that makes a nice, really nice impression at the table. It's just great for if your kids really like cherries, and maybe this would be the time to get your kids around you, gather them around you, and while you're making something like this, let the kids help you, and then tell them stories about the presidents. Have a celebration day during the month of February when you tell them about the founders of our country and how that this country was founded on a real deep, deep faith in God, and they wanted the freedom to worship, and that's why they came. They found the new land. This would be a great time just to reinforce what we all know. So I would ask you to think about that and plan a day and make your kids right in the center of the plans. We'll be right back in just a minute. Here's how to get today's recipes.
Just go to ctvn.org/athome to get all the recipes from today's show for free. That's right, no subscriptions. They're available online at no cost, and more are being added each day. So join us at ctvn.org/athome to get today's recipes now.
Well, here's our celebration of cherries. Let me show you what we've prepared today. This is Cherry Delight, the meringue with the Cool Whip. There's walnuts and crackers, real crunchy, light. It's really, really good. We put the cherries on top. And then this is our Crazy Crust cherry pie. So easy. And we just took some little bits of ice cream. I mean, this crew said, let's go for ice cream. I was going to put a little bit of Cool Whip. The crew wanted ice cream. So we just put some ice cream balls around the edge. You can let your mind go. They even suggested, how about a little chocolate drizzle? I mean, this crowd, they could eat anything. And then we have our cherry cookies here that has the surprise cherry in the center and the nice, real light icing on top and another little piece of cherry. These, by the way, freeze really, really well. I hope that you've enjoyed today's program about cherries and our presidents. And be sure to join us the next time, because it just wouldn't be the same without you here at home. We'll see you then.
Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you'll never miss another episode of At Home. Thank you for watching.
Fresh produce provided by Jordan Banana, wholesalers of fresh fruit and vegetables in Dravosburg, PA. Cookware provided by Woolies. Your favorite gourmet deserves the best for less from Woolly Balcony Cookware. Groceries provided by Foodland, where the answer is always yes. Cornerstone Television wishes to thank all our faithful viewers whose consistent prayers and financial support have made this program possible.